Zhongguo, the Middle Kingdom, political economy, and the long arc of technology. To truly grasp China's resurgence as an artificial intelligence (AI) superpower, one must view the nation through the lens of a civilization that has striven to maintain power, equilibrium, and centralization for millennia, rather than merely a modern nation-state by Western definitions. China did not begin its history as a follower. It originated as the Middle Kingdom, Zhongguo, rooted in a complex, hydraulic state economy. This system compelled the creation of a formidable bureaucracy to control the unpredictable Yellow and Yangtze Rivers. These developments propelled China under the Tang and Song Dynasties, 7th to 13th centuries, into what economic historians call a Proto-Industrial Civilization. While Europe remained shrouded in the Dark Ages following the fall of Rome, China possessed a monetary economy utilizing paper currency, industrial-scale iron and coal production, and groundbreaking innovations like gunpowder, the compass, and printing, advancing centuries ahead of the West. Moreover, the Imperial Examination System, Keju, served as a sophisticated human capital allocation mechanism, drawing intellect from all social strata into the machinery of state power. However, the perfection of this unified system eventually became a success trap. By the 15th century, as the European Renaissance began and resource scarcity forced Western powers to look outward, China, under the Ming Dynasty, stood atop a mountain of near-total self-sufficiency. Its maritime prowess was a global phenomenon. Zhenghe's treasure fleet featured flagships over 120 meters long, staggering when compared to Christopher Columbus's Santa Maria, which discovered America decades later at a mere 18 meters in length. Yet, these gargantuan vessels were used primarily for prestige within the tributary system rather than commercial conquest. Judging the outside world as having nothing it required and fearing land-based instability, the Ming court chose to burn the fleet and turn inland. This strategic decision prioritized stability over the risk of innovation. While Europe moved forward under the pressure of interstate competition, China remained ensnared in an equilibrium trap, where its vast knowledge was never translated into the mass industrial production that would later define the West. The Great Divergence, science as capital. The most distinct divergence between China and the West materialized in the 17th century when Sir Isaac Newton laid the foundations of modern physics. Newton's significance lay not just in gravity or calculus, but in making nature something calculable, predictable, and controllable. Crucially, this knowledge did not remain confined to laboratories. It merged with European economic institutions through patents, capital markets, and investment mechanisms that allowed entrepreneurs to transform knowledge into profit. Science became capital. The steam engine was not just the product of a lone genius, but the result of a system that allowed for failed experiments, risky investments, and industrial-scale replication. In contrast, China during the early Qing dynasty did not ignore Western science. Emperor Kangxi himself was a profound mathematician and astronomer. However, the problem was not the leader's intellect, but the state structure. Science in China remained tethered to the court, used for calculating the imperial calendar and sanctifying the emperor's mandate. It was a tool of governance rather than a force of production. Lacking capital markets and technical incentives, science remained elite knowledge rather than an industrial engine. The consequence of this structural disparity became brutal in the 19th century during the Opium Wars. This was not merely a military defeat, but the collapse of an entire economic system. Traditional swords and junks fell not just to superior cannons, but to an industrial capitalism capable of infinite replication, backed by a global financial system. The ensuing century of humiliation left a structural scar on the Chinese consciousness, teaching the vital lesson that antiquity or cultural morality cannot protect sovereignty if a nation does not command the language of power, technology. Consequently, the 1978 reforms under Deng Xiaoping were not just policy shifts, but a total reset of the state's operating system. China utilized its vast population, once an economic burden, as data capital in the digital age. It leapfrogged traditional developmental stages, jumping from lacking basic telecommunications to a cashless, platform-based society where digital systems permeate every facet of life. AI, the new gunpowder. In this context, AI is seen as a master technology that will determine the next global balance of power, akin to gunpowder or the steam engine. Through state capitalism, China can centralize data and deploy AI at a state level in ways the free world, constrained by market mechanisms and privacy rights, finds difficult. China's goal is to return to the center of the global order as the architect of future standards. This ambition hinges on the semiconductor industry, the heart of modern technology. Understanding the structural risks of relying on Western chip architecture, China launched Made in China 2025, aiming for 70% self-sufficiency in chips. Despite current challenges, the Big Fund, with over $100 billion in investment, has pushed companies like SMIC and Huawei to break through technological barriers, producing 7nm chips even amidst restricted access to Western EUV machinery. China's future is a data-driven governance system more precise than any in history. With 1.4 billion people, China possesses the world's most massive data capital to train AI models. According to Stanford's AI Index report, China has already surpassed the US in AI research citations and patent filings in fields like computer vision and facial recognition, applied across 500 smart cities. These systems are evolving from mere monitoring to predicting social and economic behaviors, an ancient centralized bureaucracy upgraded with modern algorithms. To solve the energy demands of this compute power, China has initiated the East-to-West computing resource strategy, transferring processing tasks from prosperous coastal provinces to Western regions rich in clean energy, solving both economic and engineering puzzles simultaneously. The evolution of Made in China. As technology soars, the identity of Made in China is transforming amidst a contracting economy. No longer a cheap labor factory, Chinese manufacturers are moving toward high-value goods to escape domestic deflationary pressure. The new three sectors, electric vehicles, EVs, lithium batteries, and solar energy, now lead exports, generating over 1 trillion yuan and sparking a China Shock 2.0 as high-quality, lower-cost excess capacity hits global markets. China is pivoting from quantity to AI-driven quality, building lights-out factories to remain competitive despite rising wages and a shrinking workforce. In the next decade, Made in China will signify the smartest goods rather than the cheapest. China's strategic security is anchored in food and energy. Finally, China's strategic security is anchored in food and energy. With less than 10% of the world's arable land but 20% of its population, China has embraced AI-driven precision agriculture. Sensors and drones in arid regions like Xinjiang reduce water usage by up to 30%, while AI-optimized seawater rice projects expand food security. In energy, the AI Plus Energy Action Plan integrates AI into a national smart grid to manage the intermittency of wind and solar power, reducing transmission loss by 15%. By securing both its digital brain and its physical survival through AI, China is proving that despite resource constraints and geopolitical tension, technology can serve as the ultimate guardian of human security. This is the closing of a historical loop, from a fallen empire to a modern Middle Kingdom where state power and technology are indistinguishably fused.